Good morning, good afternoon, good something. Um, if I look like I just woke up, I apologize because I just did wake up. Well, not kind of. I've been working on this for a little bit, but somebody mentioned that hey, you're not being very polite with all those foul words and cussing, and I want to talk about the priorities of polite society and cuss words, bad words. In order to do that, we kind of have to talk about the history of it, right? 1972, most people can look this up really quick. And most people are familiar with George Carlin. And George Carlin did a skit about this over and over again. It's hilarious. Look it up. Just look up George Carlin bad words if you want to see it and you've never seen it. But of course, he talks about the 7 deadly words, which are shit, piss, fuck, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, and the C word. Never mind the fact that that word probably fits a lot of men and some women. But we need to talk about why in 1972. So at the end of the civil rights movement era, we see polite society worrying about the impact. Letting all these people get on broadcast TV and broadcast radio. And broadcast TV and broadcast radio is what's limited by this golden rule. More recently, you cannot create a website name with that if you're a US-based website. So you can't use fuck in the name of your website if you are a United States-based company or blogger or whatever. And the whole real reason about this, most people will go civil rights movement, and they're right. But more importantly, really, ladies, is Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade isn't just about abortion. In fact, abortion was the only medical thing that they could find that women exclusively have a right to that men don't. And so the importance of this really was about defining us as full citizens. And full citizenship is huge because Roe v. Wade, pre-1972, we were not considered full citizens. We still needed a man's signature to get a bank account, to get a credit card. You couldn't have your own credit rating. So in polite society, women had no rights to have an opinion. So when you tell me I can't cuss, I'm like, well, let's go back to the history of when we got the right to cuss and be outraged. And to our own credit cards and our own bank accounts. And the privacy of somebody not going through our medical records. Because you couldn't get surgery in some states in this country until Roe v. Wade without your husband, brother, son, father signing off on it. A lot of you that go get a lot of plastic surgery might be wanting to think that up over. But once you consider this, racial slurs have never been banned. Not a single one of them. Not the N-word. Not wop, chink, mick. Not a single one of those racial slurs has ever made a ban list. Welcome to white male America, girls. And everybody else. So, religious people often are people that say, don't use those words. I have religious friends. I have friends that aren't religious that don't use those words. And I promise you, around them, I try not to use those words. I have a friend who, he's never drank. He's never cussed. He's never said a mean word to anyone in his life, even when he is mad. He lives by those beliefs. And I do make a genuine effort never to cuss in front of him. But he lives by his beliefs. And let me tell you, he has always been the first one when I'm like, oh, I'm so very sorry. He goes, it's your feelings coming out, I understand. He's not giving me a pass, per se, but he's not judging me. Unlike a lot of the people when they do, it's not really that they're mad that I'm cussing. They're offended by what I'm talking about, not by the words coming out of my mouth. They're not offended by the cuss words. They're using it as an excuse to try and shut down the conversation. I'm sorry. Every last person I've ever known that's tried to shut down a conversation using that BS uses the words far more often than I have ever dreamt of. And I'm a sailor, for fuck's sake. So, I mean, really, I have an example of a guy who cussed more than me at work, who got offended that a new boss used the F-bomb 3 times, maybe in a 2-hour period. Guy was from Europe. Of course he's going to use it quite a bit. They use it more freely than we do, certainly. And there's no limitations to how they can use it because it's on a ban list. So, but he was the first one. Me. He says it more than me. If that's even possible. But he was the first one bitching. The hypocrisy of polite society is we're going to say it when we want to, but you cannot say it because I don't like what you're talking about, or I don't like you, or I don't think you should be allowed. Women, especially in polite society, shouldn't cuss. I definitely grew up like that. And sure, I'll admit, there's certain times that you shouldn't be cussing. You shouldn't be cussing in schools, in elementary schools. But let's be honest, in high school, we all know that they're cussing because we all did it. And we all know that that's part of society. Period. Whether we like it or not, that's just the way it is. But let's go into this idea of polite society. Let's breathe it in for a second. Polite society. You get a picture in your mind. We all do. Now, I'm going to tell you, in that polite society, rape was legal, boys and girls. A woman's father, a teenage girl, a little girl's father could rape her. Incest wasn't legal, but it didn't matter because we're not allowed to talk about that in polite society. Sure shit wasn't allowed to talk about rape, right? What was she wearing? What did she do? What'd she do? Anybody in Gen X or earlier knows what I'm talking about. What was she wearing? Why was she wearing those shoes? Where was she at? How much did she drink? We tried desperately to turn the woman into the aggressor when she had been beaten and raped and forcibly penetrated. But we don't talk about that in polite society. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. How dare you? That date rape, which was the most common form of rape and still remains the most common form of rape, that we still don't talk really in depth about because of polite society. If you got date raped just 50 years ago or earlier, in my lifetime, a lot of families would make you marry your rapist. You need to do it for the good of the family name, because we need to remain in our position in polite society. Facts. How many of your grandmothers end up married to their rapist? How many of your great-grandmothers ended up married to their rapist? That's polite society. Think on it a little bit. But the other weird thing about polite society is then lynchings. You're murdering somebody in front of a crowd. The weirdest thing about polite society was the heinous stuff that would be done in the name of polite society. I mean, they mailed lynching postcards. You couldn't mail a picture of a Native American in a Native costume because it showed a chested part of the man's chest. You couldn't mail a picture of a Native woman because it showed her knees and her ankles. You couldn't mail a picture of a woman wearing a pair of pants. That was considered impolite in polite society. But you could mail a picture of you and your kids at a picnic, grinning ear to ear, hanging with a dead body hanging over your heads. That's polite society, folks.
That was polite.
The hypocrisy of polite society is so obnoxious. It's unbelievable. In fact, polite society, and especially the lynching of somebody, it really highlights how hypocritical polite society has been. And polite society was, if you looked at a woman, polite society, which is code word for white, wealthy, or upper middle. If you looked at her the wrong way and you were the wrong color, you could end up dangling from a tree. That was polite society. If you were poor and white, let's be realistic. You didn't end up dead. You ended up beaten and jailed. Just because you looked at somebody the wrong way. Just because you gave them a glance. That's polite society. That's the society all of you guys want to talk about. You don't want to talk about that. Let's not talk about that. But let's not talk about that and how hypocritical polite society actually was. Let's not talk about those things. We don't like those things. We don't talk about things we don't like. Well, let's be honest. You get offended if I want to read books that you don't like. Never mind that you never read them. You should read that. Polite society. We don't read those kind of books here. You're not allowed to read those kind of books. The only excuse is, your version of polite society, right? You don't want to talk about history that makes you uncomfortable. And certainly I talk about history that makes everybody uncomfortable sometimes. You don't want to talk about that. Oh my God. God forbid. Well, we don't want to learn from our past. That happened in the past. It's done. It's over. It's gone. It's blah, blah, blah. No, that's polite society behavior. That's why we don't know about Roanoke. Because polite society didn't talk about failure. Failure was something you did not talk about. Either you were successful and you bragged incessantly, or you never talked about failure. A lot of people failed, and a lot of people fail once. They were done because you didn't talk about failure. You get offended by the stupidest shit. You get offended if the wrong color person is walking a dog on a community sidewalk. That's what your polite society allows. You're not supposed to be offended by some crazy woman yelling at you because she's whiter than you, right? And you guys can look her up. This crazy dog woman. She goes up to this American-born. You can hear her. She's Asian, and according to the racist white woman. And she sounds American, so she's American-born. Or American raised, doesn't matter to me. American born, American raised, the woman that's offending and calling her racist names and being rude is definitely British. She's telling this poor dog walking girl, just trying to make a living walking dogs, go back to your country. This is her country. You go back to England. Fuck. Oh, I'm sorry. Did that offend you? But that's the kind of nonsense we're talking about. You get offended if it rains on the day that you plan on going for a walk. How dare the weather not do what you told it to? You get offended when anything doesn't go your way. Whenever we want to talk about things you don't want to talk about. Whenever you don't like something, you're offended. And you use polite society to cover up, just like we always have. That's the truth. Oh, excuse me I'm going to draw a priorities contrast. I get offended, and I will cuss up a storm when I get offended. I get offended because you want to burn books that I want to read. That I want my kids to read, my grandchildren to read. You want to burn them, destroy them, end them. Completely eliminate them from history. Because you are offended by them. But you don't even know what's in them because you've never read them. You're not going to read that because it's offensive to you. No, it's offensive that you are offended by somebody telling you you should be offended. You've never read the book, so you don't know if you're offended or not. I get offended when you tell other Americans to go home because they're not white enough for you. Let that sink in. You are such a racist piece of shit, and you let your friends and your other friends get away with this kind of garbage to the point that a white enough immigrant feels that it's okay for them to tell a natural born American citizen that they need to go home. I have watched a racist white woman firsthand tell a man in military uniform, American, and he was polite. Boy, God bless him. I'd have knocked her from here to next Christmas. But not while I was in the military, I wouldn't have. And he knew better because he served in our United States military. Was active duty, in uniform. And boy, there's a whole bunch of people out watching her. Cuss him slap happy out, being rude and screaming, go home. This is his home. You could tell. He was born and raised here. He said, ma'am, I was born and raised here. I'm from Michigan. No, you're not. No, you're not. Excuse me, I walked up and told the bitch to walk off. I'm offended. Then she had the nerve to tell me she was offended. Because I called her a bitch. Anyway, on the offensive word list. Let me tell you, I get offended that you don't have the balls or the backbone to tell your own friends, let alone strangers, shut the hell up and stop being a racist piece of shit. You don't have the balls. You didn't serve this country. You don't give a shit. You think that we owe you. The 5% of us that served even owe you. And you have the audacity to thank us. You want to thank us? Next time your racist shitbag friend is standing in your kitchen saying something stupid and racist, talking about how all these people, they're going to try and take over our country. Look at that dipshit and say 70% of the country is still white. And the only way that happened is if we murdered them. The only way that happened, the only way we overtook the Native American, you guys want to rewrite history, but let's be honest. You go out to the Plain States and you go into those history archives, and the U.S. Army knows they did this. They slaughtered people under Andrew Jackson, under executive order. Slaughtered Native Americans, women and children too, because in polite society didn't count them. So, if you're so offended by the fact, you're outraged by the fact that I say fuck, bitch, damn, fuck, even GD once in a while when I'm really mad, versus your fake, polite society bullshit? Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And don't be surprised that there's more and more of us like that. And boys, don't be surprised that there's more and more women that are willing to speak their mind and not give a damn about your polite society.